a yang, I'm a yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me, cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me, like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall with the jaws and the razor teeth. Where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods if I cross your path. And my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief. And the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high. I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country I'll end your life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
All right, now you sons of bitches. You know how I feel.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio Live. On the last evening of WHBJ Digital Talk for a while, I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the broadcast bunker in Pittsburgh. Let's go to the Reykjavik server of WHBJ, actually the Cold War Radio Network, and welcome Radio Norway to the program. Come in, please.
Good evening, Hudson. Good evening to our lovely audience. 5 degrees centigrade, or as you would backwardly say in America, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. So not quite summer yet in northern Norway.
You know, they tried that one time. They tried to put the metric system in here with all the idiosyncrasies. It did not work. We're back to where we were. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow me on Spreaker. Email the program at scrtv@live.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline is up, 412-206-6208. If you want to catch the podcast after the program, you can catch it on the 405media.com, iHeartRadio, RD Elephant, the Cold War Radio app, which is free in your app store. You can go to YouTube, which has the added benefit of captions. When you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Cold War Radio, and you'll be instantly linked with many of your fellow listeners. Please go to steelcityresistance.com, catch the research room, become a Cold War Radio patron, help to keep this thing going. And you can also subscribe on Subscribestar if you have any problems with Patreon. You can check out the video page, which shows the videos to most of the audio links that we have on the show. You can go to Cold War Radio Bunker in the right-hand margin for all your Cold War Radio merchandise. If you'd like to write the program, write to Cold War Radio, P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. Cold War Radio. First of all, let me thank everybody who came out and donated to April Sheets. That was a fantastic move. I appreciate it. I got a nice email back from the sponsor of that GoFundMe operation. If you did donate and you got the update, the latest update, it's just sad. They posted a Facebook page post from the deceased from a year ago, and it's just so apparent that the communists are so evil. They go after good-hearted, good people with heartstrings stories for some of their evil schemes. She mentioned 3 of them right in the post. I wasn't going to say anything, but it's not against her at all in any way, shape, or form. She was hoodwinked. Black Lives Matter, jihadists, illegal immigrants. These people on the left, they go after these young, good-hearted folks, and just it's a shame. Anyway, so thank you for that. Yeah, it's
absolutely, Hutch. I think it's okay to pause a little because a lot of people that voted Democrats in the 2018 election, 2016 election, and a lot of elections before that are really good-hearted people. People that really wants the best for their fellow man. And like you say, they're being hoodwinked into believing the lies, the scams that this party is perpetrating on people. And I mean, the best thing we can do is to uncover the stories and show them for what they really are.
That's right. It's pure evil. It really is. I mean. And some of them are so regretful when they hit their 30s and 40s and figure it out. A lot of them never figure it out because they don't want to figure it out. But that being said, thank you very much, and for keeping it non-political too. I know there's a lot of people on the left in that crowd, and it didn't matter to me when it came to trying to help.
No, absolutely. I mean, it is a tragedy, and it's a horrible tragedy. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens that someone dies in childbirth, it's a tragedy for the loss of that for the loss of that woman, but also for the child that has to grow up without a mother. So,
and the father.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tragedy, and I mean, tragedies happen, and when they do, we need to stand together as human beings and good Christians. Absolutely.
That's why I did it, and I took a chance. I had a little pushback at first, but then they said, no, you know what, go ahead. And the sponsor listened to the show and appreciated it, and so that's all good, and our prayers are with that family for sure. Now, today is an historic day. This is the end of the WHBJ feasibility study. It is complete, and this will be the last night that this station broadcasts. I mean, it's going to go all the way to its end tomorrow, but after that, we're going back to CWR. We're going back to Spreaker.com/shows. Rocky will put it in the chat room, /CWR. I think that's the way it is. I'm almost positive. If not, I'll be corrected and we'll get it right. But it was a good run. It was 4 months. I learned a lot. I learned what we need to do it for real on a sustainable level. And I can't do that by myself, or I should say I won't do it by myself. I can. And I learned how to run a station. That was another thing. I told you right from the beginning, and I told you guys, Norway, that I'm going to do this. I'm not going to fail. we're going to put a preliminary study out, and that's what we did for 4 months. And I realized you got to have a whole lot of room for files. You got to do a whole lot of coordinating. And I think the next time we do it, if we decide to do it, it won't be until late fall. But there's some things we're going to have some additional parameters on creators. In other words, I'm not doing any more of these 17-minute podcasts. That's just too hard, man.
They're murder, absolutely. But I think it could be done electronically. I think there is software out there that can handle that sort of a task automatically. So, but that would probably require a bigger budget than we're running on right now. So
I actually have I have a lot of the software already. The problem is when you have shows, especially established shows that are like this show, they want to know, when am I on? So if you tell them exactly. 10 p.m. and you have a 17-minute podcast, I mean, I could run. I have enough to put filler stuff in there, and this is fine. This is fine, but this is what I mean when I say we need a bigger staff to do that, because I'm doing it all the time, and I love doing it. But
what is going to happen to the call sign WHBJ-DB?
Oh, I still own it. I own it. It's
okay. So it's not
internet.
Not going to scrap it.
No, Internet Radio Uniform Call Sign, trademark. It's like I said, we're going to have some conversations between the staff, and we might bring some more people on, or we might not. And then when we figure out how to do it, we'll go from there, and we'll let you know. The good side is that the Saturday and Sunday programs that began within our audience, I'm going to figure out a way to squeeze them in. I'm not exactly sure. It probably. Well, I may do it tomorrow, but it's probably not going to. It's probably going to be on Sunday because that's the day that Steel City Resistance was on. But I'll figure all that out, and I'll let you know. I'm
real sorry. I'm real sorry, Marlene. I know Marlene went to a lot of trouble making a surprise for us, but since this is the last show, that has to be a redo.
Well, I can edit that. I can edit it. I just need to.
But we can fix that. It takes 5 minutes, so
that's true. And you know what? Let's just let me see where are we at here. Let me. Where did I put that? I put it here. I should. Oh, let's listen.
Looking for an alternative place to find news and opinion? How about conversing with fellow patriots? Join us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for Cold War Radio. You will find it on WHBJ-DB in the Spreaker app. Since I've started listening, I've met some terrific patriots and learned a lot about current events that the mainstream media will never, ever tell you.
So that was Marlene. That was Marlene, ladies and gentlemen, with a musical bombshell in the background. Where'd that come from?
Oh, I put something together real quick. So that was my little composition.
So thank you, Marlene, at Norway. That's a beautiful thing, and we'll get it to where it works on Monday. I certainly will. Now, I saw an article by a woman named Judith Bergman from the Gatestone Institute that really explained how fake the whole Palestinian PLO, how phony that all really is. And it was so succinct and basically had the Russians in it, left, right, left, in ways that you will never believe. And Mona is working on getting her on the program. Some good news on that. The reason I mention it, The article she wrote was from 2016, but it ended up on Twitter, and she followed me on Twitter today. So I don't know if Mona made contact, but that's a good thing. She's got a great story.
Absolutely, and our friend Trevor Loudon has done a documentary on I think it was titled Soviet Islam or something like that. Soviet Islam, I think, is the title of his documentary. And absolutely, I mean, the PLO was dreamt up by the KGB. So
that's exactly right.
So I mean, yeah.
The thing that got me that perked my ears and eyes was that those of you that are younger than 40 are not going to remember him, but Yasser Arafat was this savior of Palestine. The KGB went into his records. He was born in Cairo, and they went into his records and destroyed all of those records and injected new records saying that he was born somewhere on the West Bank or so. I don't know where it is exactly, but
Jerusalem, actually.
Yeah, that is what it was. It was Jerusalem. Unbelievable. This has been going on for so long. You've got entire generations of millennials and whatnot that believe it. You know me. I call them Jordanian nomads. Myself, I mean, let's get serious here.
Bless you for that.
It's what they are. I mean, nobody will take them over there. You look at a map of the Middle East, and you look at Israel, and you look at the massive land masses around it, and it's like, why do you want Israel? Go over here. Go over there,
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what the Jewish people has been doing, I mean, remember when Muhammad fought his way out of Arabia. I mean, at that point, the entire Arabic Peninsula, the Middle East, was either Jewish or Christian.
Right, exactly.
And they lived peacefully, side by side, trading, going about their lives. And all this land has been occupied by Islamic conquests. And when the world society decided to give the Jewish people the third Jewish state, because they had two previous Jewish states historically, the Israelis they bent over backwards to accommodate the few Arabic nomads living in the new territory. And whatever they did, it was riots, murder, massacres. And looking at Israel today, it is less than half what it was after the Yom Kippur War of '73.
Yeah,
they have given huge concessions
sure.
to the Muslims, but nothing is good enough, because Islamic war doctrine says that as soon as a Muslim steps foot on some land, that land is Islamic forever.
Yeah. And as soon as, we talked about the two different Islams of Mecca and Medina, as soon as it gets to 8% of the population, we start going full Medina.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're seeing in Sweden and some other places now. And you're going to see it wherever that happens, unless we wake up. Yeah, England, sure.
You see the pictures coming out of Trafalgar Square today with thousands of Muslims invading that famous square in London, holding their open air iftar. End of Ramadan dinner. Absolutely.
And you look at what the audio from there. This country is now ours, is what they were saying. They were screaming it. I mean, and then we have Eid coming up on the 3rd of June, which is just a slaughter for animals. I mean, it's hideous. I would ask everybody to research that, and you got to do it with images, because you won't believe when the blood starts running in the streets and these kids are playing around in it, and then we wonder why they have no problem decapitating people with a dull knife.
And it's spelled EID.
Yes, it is.
So look it up, folks, if you can stomach it. I think everybody should research it, because it is about damn time we wake up in the West and start seeing the monster for what it is.
It's hideous. I mean, if you go to bare naked Islam, make no mistake, you better have a strong stomach. But it's real. It's real. You cannot hide this and expect us to win. And if we don't win, we lose.
Absolutely. And they say that the first casualty of war is truth. And oh boy, has truth been sacrificed on the altar of political correctness in this war. It is absolutely without parallels throughout history. I mean, we have seen wars where propaganda and where the truth has been sacrificed, but nothing compares to the rosy picture that has been painted of Islam as one of the Abrahamic religions, just like Christianity and Judaism. It has nothing to do with Christianity and Judaism, apart from the fact that Muhammad copied and pasted a few passages from the Torah and from the Bible to win over, more easily win over people to that satanic moon god idol cult of his.
Right. There's no question. And I think what I'm going to do here is I am going to hold the clips until after the interview, because we don't have enough time to do them all. But I have some content for that. This is an exclusive from the Gateway Pundit. Former Italian Prime Minister Renzi, Obama comrade, who we connected in the plot to eliminate Trump. Don't forget that, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't just in the United States, the leftists in the United States. There was a lot of our so-called allies that were involved in this coup, and Italy was one of them. But he was connected in the plot to eliminate Trump, and it was put out there, and now he is resigning. So I think the dominoes are getting ready to start falling, and I have a clip for after the interview that's going to really highlight that. Just pray for people's health. That's all I can say, because we're in the dumpster zone right now. Now's when people start committing suicide with 3 in the back of the head. I mean, there's so much at stake here that I pray that AG Barr and President Trump and everybody that President Trump trusts have thought this through, and they have enough resources on hand, because when this breaks, it's going to break like a dam, and it's something that's never happened in the history of the United States. I mean, Watergate is a pimple on this thing's butt.
Yeah, not even that. It's a skin cell on the pimple on the butt. I mean, it is nothing compared to this. And I mean, on Tuesday, Giulio Occhionero and his sister Francesca Maria were arrested, and they claim that, or Occhionero claims that members of Italian intelligence were approached by Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, and the deep state in order to frame Trump by planting evidence on American servers to force Trump to step down from office. In other words, members of Italian intelligence found a target in Occhionero, a Republican sympathizer who had 2 servers for his company, Westland Securities, located in America. One was in Washington state and the other in West Virginia. The plan was for Italian intelligence to hack into these servers, plant classified emails from Hillary's servers inside these servers on American soil, and then alert the FBI. The FBI would then raise these locations, quote, discover, unquote, these emails, investigate, link these servers to Trump, and then force Trump to resign.
Sickening. Absolutely
It
sickening.
is sickening. It is
and
absolutely
bigger than anything, like I said. And you can tell, you got old pencil neck out there, Schiff, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I think that's the committee, one of the committees. one of the principal committees that's dealing with this, sends a letter to the Director of National Intelligence, Coates, demanding oversight of Attorney General Barr declassification of Trump investigation documents. They're scared, Norway. They are terrified, and they're going to start telling on each other.
They are indeed terrified, and we've seen some. I think it's up to 19 attempts on Trump so far. I would say that everybody needs to pray for Trump, the first family, and all the good Americans surrounding him, and pray that they are kept safe, and God bless the United States Secret Service for the fantastic job they are doing. They have unraveled all these attempts, and now on Sunday I saw that Franklin Graham, James Dobson, and other faith leaders are going to pray for President Donald Trump. That was an article today on the Political Insider, and they say, we, the underside, are calling for June 2nd to be a special day of prayer for the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, that God would protect, strengthen, embolden, and direct him. The faith leaders have shared across the internet and with their followers and many other faithful, they wrote in their message distributed widely online. So I hope people will follow this great example and pray for President Trump on Sunday, June the 2nd, and every other day, because the man needs it. I mean, the role he has taken as President of the United States of America today is as important as the role George Washington took in the formation of that great republic. And George Washington, unbelievable, he rode in front of his troops in every battle. And I think the closest he came to a musket ball, even though they were hailing around him, was one musket ball penetrated his jacket at one charge, and that was it. And I believe that is down a lot to the prayers that were given to President George Washington. And so people, I would urge everyone to pray for President Donald Trump, his family, and everyone around him doing God's work.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest tonight. National property rights activist Andrew Langer is the president of the Institute for Liberty and a contributor to the American Spectator and townhall.com, two outstanding outlets. Since 2008, Andrew Langer has been president of the Institute for Liberty. IFL works on a variety of issues promoting and protecting small business, linking trade and prosperity, tilting against the regulatory state, but at the organization's core, and Andrew's, is the desire to promote freedom and individual rights. Andrew has been involved in free market and limited government causes for nearly 20 years, has testified before Congress nearly 24 times, and spoke at the historic 9/12 D.C. March. Sir, welcome to Cold War Radio. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. and my co-host, Radio Norway, on location in Norway. Good evening, and thank you for coming on Cold War Radio.
Happy to be here, and I'm actually talking to you live from the heart of the cradle of American Liberty, Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm actually in the courtyard of the College of William and Mary campus.
Outstanding, outstanding. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what your, other than what I said already, what your story and your operation is doing these days?
Well, sure. I mean, I've been at this, actually, it's an old bio. I need to update it because I've been at this for almost a quarter century now. I come to my conservatarian beliefs from my anti-authoritarian, anti-communist stances. I was a Soviet studies major in college, and then the Soviet Union disappeared in the middle of my junior year. And I studied the Soviet Union because I felt then, as I do now, that Marxist-Leninism remains an evil force that has to be that subsumes individual rights to a collective is a system that is apt to be abused. And so I've worked in a variety of capacities over the years, in the property rights movement, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about, but also working for organizations like the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I worked as a small business lobbyist. And for the last 10 years, I've been running the Institute for Liberty, or it's been running me. I also do radio out of Baltimore on a station called WBAL. But yeah, we work on a variety of issues having to do with the protection of individual rights, especially property rights, talking about the, things like federalism and the importance of the devolution of power, why cronyism is a bad thing, and how a lot of the problems in our political system can be traced to the ability of cronyists to try to extract some kind of transactional give and take for their political dollars. We don't see campaign finance as a problem. We see it as a size of government problem. The bigger the government you have, the more easily it is to for that government to become corrupted. So we work on this. We're working on some data privacy things, which is sort of how I'm talking about property rights today. Working on really trying to find real solutions to problems.
And we'll give you plenty of time to talk about the property rights, but you can talk about whatever you want. You're certainly at home here. I like the conservatarian title. That's probably what most of my audience is.
Well, real quick, I mean, it's one of those things where I did identify for a very long time as someone who was solidly a small L libertarian. But in recent years, the various libertarian movements have sorely disappointed me. Because some of it is a lack of a recognition that we have to live in the real world. As my father is fond of saying, there are many roads to utopia. However, all must traverse the surface of the earth. And it's a very succinct way of saying what I used to say, which is, even the most well-intentioned policies bump up against very real realities. So sure, it would be really nice if we could live in a world where everybody could easily come here and become an American. And in fact, we should, maybe make it easier for some people to come here. But the reality is you have the libertarians that want to keep our borders entirely open. And when you do that, then you lose who we are as a nation. And this is what I'm sure your colleague in Norway understands, where you have individual states in Norway, individual nations in Norway, losing who they are because of unrestricted mass migration. And that's a real problem. Or, again, for the libertarians here, their lack of a defense of religious freedom. To us, it's a fundamental aspect of a free society that you not be compelled to act against your own conscience. And yet you have people who, because of a variety of religious reasons, they don't want to do business with somebody. They don't want to use more to the point, use their creative talents to act in furtherance of something that they don't believe in religion-wise. And it should not be left to the state or under other individuals to compel them to give up their talents. That's a form of slavery. And the libertarians should understand this. They should be the most vocal about this. And yet they have been standing on the sidelines with these a variety of these religious freedom cases.
Absolutely, it's a great pleasure to have you on our show, Mr. Langer. And you're absolutely right when it comes to Norway or the Nordic countries or Western Europe in general. With mass migration, we're losing our culture. I mean, Norway is far from the worst-stricken country, but in the big cities here and also in smaller communities, you can't recognize these communities as Norwegian. You're far more inclined to think of them as Afghani or Iraqi. So I'm absolutely with you on that. I also have a soft spot for the classic libertarian thought, and I'm a great fan of the Austrian School of Economics. But you're absolutely right, and your dad, that is a brilliant phrase. Most of the roads to utopia goes across the surface of the planet, so the surface of the earth, So
listen, it's funny because I said this, and my father immediately, when I used my phrase, my father immediately turned around and said that to me, and I said, Dad, I'm stealing that. I'm going to give him credit for it. but this is the thing, right? We have to deal with the real world, and so when we're talking about trade, and we're talking about what the U.S. is doing on trade. I have a piece up at the Economic Standard, put it up yesterday. talking about how trade is differentiated. Trade negotiations are different than other kinds of international relations theory. And again, I have a degree in international relations. So, when you're negotiating on military issues and when you're negotiating on sovereignty issues, there is a certain degree of give and take that happens. But you expect a certain degree of cooperation. But when you're talking about trade and you're talking about economic negotiations, it is incumbent upon any nation to put their interests before the folks that they're negotiating with. And this is what Donald Trump has done. And so this is what I call the Trump doctrine. And so this idea, listen, I'm sure we all would love it if everybody were competing, when it comes to trade, competing on a level playing field. But we all know that there are certain nations that massively subsidize or massively protect their economies, massively restrict the entrance of products into their systems, and so it distorts what is otherwise a free marketplace. And so it behooves any nation that is dealing with this to engage in a degree of protectionism to make sure. And, it's funny because in the U.S., we could talk about this with, the much maligned sugar industry. But, here we are dealing with critical resources, rare earth minerals and others that are used in critical defense projects. And we have allowed ourselves the United States has allowed itself to become entirely dependent upon places like China for these rare earth minerals. And we've done this to ourselves through a whole host of things. And so here we are now faced in a rightful trade war with China. And, of course, China is going to turn around and use their ownership, their supply of these rare and vital minerals as a cudgel against us. That's what they're going to do. And to me, it doesn't say that we need to bend to their whim. What it means is we need to be looking at, and any nation should be looking at, how it can make sure that it is not held to be pressured by these other nations for vital resources in the time of need.
Absolutely, but I think the rare earth issue isn't as critical as one might think, because we know that in the North Atlantic, from Greenland to Norway, there are huge mineral deposits. So
yes,
I'm not really.
But hold on for one second. But one of the problems is that the United States has not signed the Law of the Sea Treaty, so we cannot access those minerals in the North Atlantic because we cannot. We are no longer. We don't have a say at the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, the folks who would assign us our rights there. I mean, which is something that I dealt with a very long time ago.
Yeah,
and I agree. If
you have a market economies in place, you can always buy it. So I mean, it's not like you're going to run out of it. That's my point. But you mentioned cronyism and crony capitalism. Could you give us a few insights on what your thoughts are on that, and especially how can we combat it?
Well, that's exactly it, right? I mean, so it's this idea that when you have a big, well-heeled, powerful actors in a particular marketplace, that they will turn around and use that power. And again, folks are free to use their power. But when they use their power to engage in anti-competitive practices, to either create regulatory regimes that force smaller actors, smaller competitors out, or where they use it to extract, resources out of a public treasury, then that's a real problem. And so, you frequently see this in America. We see it with the Tom Steyers of the world. Tom Steyer is a very wealthy individual who's in the energy marketplace. And so he will spend $50 million in an election cycle or $100 million in an election cycle because he knows that he will get $250 million in loan guarantees for his various green energy projects. That's a form of cronyism. In terms of the property rights issues that we're working on, I'll give you an example. We are working in a bunch of different states right now. You have software companies that have created these really sophisticated and secure database management systems for a number of companies. And they have restrictions on who can access those systems and how they get licensed out, because that's what you do. That's the bread and butter of the software world. Well, the companies that they license their software to, they don't like the contracts. They happen to be well-heeled in a lot of states. So what do? They turn and use their lobbying influence in state capitals to try to jailbreak these contracts. And it's essentially a form of a regulatory taking. They use their money to get government to use their power to extract concessions that are anti-property rights. And so, sorry, go ahead.
Another, just to jump back to the rare earth minerals real quickly.
Sure.
This shortage is self-inflicted. If our EPA
Absolutely.
was reined in, we have plenty of rare earth right in the United States. I just posted a report from the United States government that shows where they all are. I mean, it's the regulatory state.
Well, and this is exactly it. I mean, this is what I meant by this international competitiveness. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We did do this to ourselves, and we have continuously done this to ourselves in terms of hobbling our economy, hobbling our ability to do these things. A really good example is the shipbuilding industry and the ship crew. We have this thing called the Jones Act, which makes it, and I believe in the Jones Act. I want to be really clear here. The Jones Act says that, if you are an American flag ship, you have to have been built in the United States and you have to be crewed by Americans. And part of this is done so that we can maintain a shipbuilding industry and a ship repair industry in the United States in the face of a regulatory regime that makes it much, much less expensive to build ships in China and in South Korea. And believe me, what I would love to see is an environment in which we, continue to change our regulatory regime. And I'll get into some numbers about that in a second, to make sure that our shipbuilding industry was more competitive. But absent that, we do need a Jones Act in order to make sure that when there is a critical time of need, we are able to build ships and repair ships and cruise ships here in America. And real quick, not to put too fine a point on it in terms of these regulatory costs. 2005 and 2017, regulatory costs in America doubled. They went from $1.2 trillion annually to about $2.25 trillion annually. And for America's smallest businesses, it went from about $7,700 per employee per year to just about $14,000 per employee per year.
Wow.
That has huge impacts on the economy. That's why we had our recession from 2007 to roughly 2017. That was a small business recession. Small businesses stopped hiring, and they largely stopped hiring because of the regulatory state. And the regulatory state has not grown under Donald Trump, and we call that the regulatory glide path. We've always said this, that if we just stop the growth of regulations, we don't even have to go down the road. It would be good to go down the road of cutting regulation, but we don't have to. Even if we just don't add to regulatory costs, then we can produce tremendous economic gains in the United States.
And the communists picked up on that right away and did a job on Pruitt. That was the first thing that the administration really started gaining some ground, was eliminating regulations. And at a great, the results have been good, but it needs to go further. Now, I'm going to give you some time. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
I'm going to give you some time to talk about the Hammonds, because I know that's a very serious issue. But I want to ask you a little more of a light question first. Please. You said that you studied the Soviet Union in college, and I just wonder what was the attitude. I mean, if you want to tell us the university, but I find it. Go ahead.
No. So yeah. I mean, there were two great Sovietology programs in the country at the time, and one of them was at Middlebury. I didn't go to Middlebury, there's no small amount of irony that I'm standing to you from the courtyard of William and Mary, because that's where I went. I went to the College of William and Mary, and understanding that at the time, a good chunk of the student population at William and Mary was the sons and daughters of folks who were neck deep in the Cold War. I know he's not a very popular figure among conservatives now, but both of Colin Powell's kids were at William and Mary roughly the same time that I was here. A lot of folks whose parents were involved in the intelligence business, who were actually out there fighting the Cold War, were all here. And so I found a great many brethren who were involved in the same studies that I was, because they were ardent anti-communists. William and Mary remains a more conservative organization, a more conservative university than most. They have their share. They had for a while. I think it's died down, but they had a very vibrant Marxist movement on campus in recent memory. These are the ones who actually shut down an ACLU event because the ACLU was too liberal. These are the ones who vandalized a statue of Thomas Jefferson on campus. But the great thing about William and Mary is that it's not a religious school. It is a state-supported school. But if William and Mary had a state religion, it would be history and tradition. This is a college that reveres its traditions. It reveres its history, and you can't be like Orwellian Marxists and believe that there is no past, there is no future, there is only, as Orwell said, only the present. Whose perception is controlled by the party. That doesn't happen in a place like William and Mary. It can't.
Well, that's good. I was on another guy's show for several years, and when the statues started coming down, he said, "Look, all that is the Democrats trying to destroy the evidence." Because every statue they took down was a Democrat with the Southern generals and things.
But really, and I talked about this on my own show last week. That Orwell quote is very important. Because if you exist in a system in which there is no history, there is only a present, then you can't learn from the past. You're only faced with how the present is being described to you, which is why the war on the media, right, or the war in the media, the war by the media on what is factual is so important. If they're controlling your perception of what is happening in the world, it makes it easier for them to control, where you're going politically.
And we have a caller, sir, from King George, Virginia. Welcome, Ken. Ken, your question.
No, my question was, you were talking about the environment earlier, and I'm sure that the EPA had, when it was developed, or when it was that was Nixon, that my memory serves me correctly. Okay,
absolutely.
I'm sure their intentions were great at the time. Hey, we're got a Republican in office, and we're going to develop this, agency that's going to take care of the environment. But you also talked about crony capitalism as well. So now this big push on green energy, right? Well, we haven't built a new nuclear facility in my recollection since the 3 Mile Island incident. Now, I'm very, very well versed on that because I was in 6th grade, and that incident happened 3 days before my birthday. But everybody was so, oh my gosh, the nuclear power. That's probably one of the safest forms of good or, clean energy we can create.
Well, carbon-free energy. Yeah. Well, let's start. Listen, let's start here, and then let's this is that I can make this as quick as possible. We
Thanks,
have
Ken.
an EPA, and we have things like the Clean Water Act and Clean Air, but we have things like the Clean Water Act because we literally had rivers catching on fire in America. I mean, that's just the way. That's where we were.
Cleveland.
And so Congress passes a law called the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act says two things. Actually three things. You cannot pollute a navigable water of the United States. And those terms, pollute and navigable and water of the United States, are all then subject to the interpretation of the EPA. And here's where it starts to get out of hand, because you get a court decision in the 1970s which says that provided that certain procedures are followed, the way an agency interprets the law is supposed to be given deference. So what an agency says goes. And over the years, if you have Congress passing more and more vague pieces of legislation and not specifically saying what these terms mean and leaving it up to the agencies to interpret, well, this is how you get, over the course of 40 years, a navigable water of the United States being a patch of desert sand in the high desert of Nevada. This is no joke. I worked on this. a patch of desert sand in the high desert of Nevada. And if you scoop up some of that sand and you let it fall back down, some part of it fall back down, you have now polluted a water of the United States. And so about 15 years ago, a member of Congress asked me how things got so bad, expecting me to beat up on the EPA. I beat up on the EPA, that's fine. But I said, Congressman, it's your fault because Congress will not take a stand on things. And so, you know, when we see this in... Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a very true fact because, I mean, just about anything that, farmers that want to spray crops or whatever, everything within, whether there's Pennsylvania, New York, I mean, as far as north as New York, they put everything under this blanket of the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Act.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably the worst one on the East Coast. So
yeah, I mean, and you know, it's interesting as well because, well, first of all, I could talk for hours because I do radio in Baltimore. I could talk for hours about what's going on at the Chesapeake Bay. But it's you know, with regards to, you know, the EPA and with regards to these kinds of interpretations, I'll give you a really good example. You know, so EPA in the Clean Water Act was specifically told in statute, it says that regular farming activities were excluded. And one of the things that farmers do in order to break up dirt just about every season is they engage in a practice called disking. You've seen them. You've seen pictures of tractors dragging these big blades of discs or disc blades behind them to break up the soil. Well, under the Obama administration, somebody said, well, you know, the Clean Water Act says that we can regulate water that runs off of mountains. So let's declare these furrowed fields as mini mountain ranges. And I'm telling you, folks, don't take my word for it. Go and Google EPA and mini mountain ranges, and you will find that what I'm saying is factual and accurate. That's how they were going to get around the Clean Water Act's provisions, preventing them from regulating farming activity.
That's how Marxists work. You know, they redefine language, and suddenly you don't know up and down in this world. So
right.
So I'm in violation. Because I've got a John Deere 2210 and about a maybe 200 square foot garden that's on a hill.
Hey, Ken.
Thankfully, Ken, you know, there was enough of a big stink that was raised, and I think they finally, that when the administrations changed, that was not implemented. But this is the kind of, listen, this is where we get into common sense, and this is where you get into plain language. And as a farmer, you know, for one of the things they tried to do was they tried to change the way off-road diesel engines work, tractor engines work, until some farmer finally came to them and said, you know, the thing you're trying to get us to do, we literally can't fit that under the hood of our engines. And that, you know, bit of comment is, I mean, so that's exactly it. And to answer your earlier question, the only answer to dealing with the size of government issues, or I'm sorry, the cronyism issues, is by recognizing that the less government is able to pick winners and losers in the marketplace, the less money it is able to hand out, the less corruption and the less cronyism there's going to be.
All right, Ken, we're running out of time. I got to let you go, man. We got to cover some other subjects. Thanks for calling. Great call.
Oh yeah, thank you.
All right, that was Ken from King George. He failed to mention that when that TMI incident happened, he lived there. I happen to know that. But I want to. We're running out of time here, unless you feel like staying a little longer. But I want.
No, unfortunately, I got to get home. But listen, on the Hammond thing, I'll be real quick about this. It's simple and straightforward. You know, you got these fathers and sons, and they did a crime, and there's no two ways about it. But they did their time. They got pardoned, and they're trying to get their lives back together. They are ranchers. This is what they do, and so they filed their permits. They got their ranching permits approved. But then, from the same kinds of leftists who want to prevent small business owners from asking people if they were convicted felons, from the same leftists who want to make sure that felons have the ability to vote, these same folks are challenging this father and sons to be able to ranch because they don't fit the character profile of folks who can do this. And this is a shame. These are guys who are just trying to get their lives together.
And they had rifles.
So they have rifles, but more to the point, they have rights, and they should be able to do this. And it is disingenuous of the left to prevent them from being able to make a living.
Absolutely. Norway, final question.
we're an activist channel, or at least we try to be. Is there anything people listening to our show can actively do to combat cronyism and help you along the way? Because the way I see it, this is perhaps the most important issue of all times in America.
Well, listen, I think the most important thing when it comes to cronyism is to make sure that their politicians, their elected leaders understand that there's a difference between political speech and cronyism, and that the problem is the ability of government to pick these winners and losers and to transfix these cash, transfuse this cash. But if there's any one thing that listeners can do, listen, there's a website called regulations.gov, and I know it sounds very dry, but all of these regulatory proposals, they go out for comment. And the only way these regulations can be challenged is if comments are ignored. And so read through. If there are things that are of interest to you on regulations.gov, file a simple comment. It doesn't have to be some 20-page term paper. A couple of paragraphs about why a regulation stinks is very, very important for folks to know. Real people can voice their opinions. That's how things get changed. So check out regulations.gov.
Why don't you tell the audience some of the other places they can get in touch with you and your company and things like that?
Absolutely. iChooseLiberty.org is our website. Go and take a look there. It's always good. The I Choose Liberty Twitter handle is ours, as well as Facebook.com/iChooseLiberty. And then they can check me out on Saturday mornings if they're if they're anywhere. Saturday mornings, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WBAL, News Radio 1090 in Baltimore. We have an app. We have a website. In fact, tomorrow's show, we're going to be talking about Trump and Mueller. We're going to be talking about trade. And I've got this great guest. Listen, it isn't political, but if you're a fan of movies, I got this great guest. His name is Zach Stentz. He wrote X-Men First Class and the first of the Marvel Thor movies. Have him on tomorrow. It's going to be a great interview.
Excellent.
All right. Andrew Langer, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program, and we hope we can get you back again sometime. I can see this lasting longer. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Andrew Langer from Williamsburg, Virginia, tonight on location. Great interview, Norway. We could have lasted another half hour for sure.
I'm sure we could speak for a couple of hours because this is a high energy guy and a guy that is totally in line with the way I think and the way you think, Hutch. And we barely managed to scrape the surface. But he mentioned an important case they're working on out in Oregon, and I posted a link in the chat room. After the show, you can go to comments under the show and find it down in the comment section if you're interested to read about this. I mean, this is a fantastic piece of work they're doing, and Andrew Langer and his crew defending people's rights. I mean, these are people that are completely run through the meat grinder of bureaucracy and the Ninth Circuit Court, and I bet these people are really, really happy. They have great patriots like Andrew Langer on their side.
And just a little inside baseball, Ken, I wasn't trying to get rid of you. I'm watching the clock. I got 30 minutes, and it was like 7 left.
Yeah,
and I had to. There's certain subjects that we agree to cover when we book these guests. So that's what that was. I got Sean on the line, but we're going to wait until he logs in and get his take on things. He's a pretty loyal listener and caller. So, Sean, you're coming right on the show right now before I get started with the clips. Go ahead.
I just wanted to give you guys a huge alert status of what's going on in California. There's this current measure next week, and this is going to be heading to any other state if they pass it here. That they are trying to take away the initiatives for citizens to put measures on the ballot, such as what we did here in California, Prop 6 gas tax repeal. They're going to take that away from us now. They're going to take away anything that we can put on a ballot as a citizen, as a normal day citizen, to be able to put it on a ballot and say, hey, we need to get this out here. We need you to all vote against the gas tax and everything because it's going to hurt you at the end of the day. So that's what they're trying to do now. So heads up, everybody.
That's got Supreme Court written all over it.
So, at least California is slightly more effective than Stalin's Soviet, because Stalin said that, hey guys, you can vote as many times as you like about these issues, as long as the vote come back the way I want it in the end. So I guess California just skipping the bureaucracy and going straight to Stalinism.
Communism. Yeah, we're actually trying to fight that now. We're trying to raise money to challenge this in court. The guy who's leading it is Carl DeMaio. I believe I told you about him, everybody, especially you, Hutch. I'll have to email you one of the things he's working on, as well as more possible candidates to interview. But, right. It's really bad, everybody. It's getting worse, and this is something that's going to head to your states, the blue states first, then red states if they can pass it in Congress. But I seriously doubt that.
Well, hey, Sean.
I wanted to give you all a heads up.
Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Peace
and I think that'll go to the Supreme Court, no doubt about it. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Cold War Radio on the final night of WHBJ digital broadcast for the feasibility study anyway. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to WHBJ Digital Talk from the 412.
Would you like to voice your patriotism without the threat of being censored or shadow banned? Would you like to contribute to wounded veterans but don't know how? Would you like to communicate with like-minded conservatives without being trolled? If you answered yes, then Red Elephant, rdelephant.com is for you. Red Elephant is the new social media platform that will not censor or shadow ban you, and a portion of your sign-up fee goes directly to the Wounded Warriors Project. rdelephant.com.
The very First Amendment in the Constitution of the United States of America gives us the freedom to express our opinions and ideas in many ways. Speech can be weak, speech can be strong. Speech can be words, speech can be song. Speech can breed love, speech can breed hate. Speech can be poor, speech can be great. There are so many things that speech can be, but above all else, speech must be free. This message is brought to you by the NAB Education Foundation, the Broadcast Education Association, McCormick Foundation, and this station.
One America News Network, your leading source for the latest breaking national and international news. With nearly 4 times as many headlines as the other networks. Straight news, no speculation, no opinion, just the facts. Complete coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One America News Network, your source for credible news.
Looking for an alternative place to find news and opinion? How about conversing with fellow patriots? Join us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for Cold War Radio. You will find it on WHBJ-DB in the Spreaker app. Since I've started listening, I've met some terrific patriots and learned a lot about current events that the mainstream media will never, ever tell you.
And welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, on WHBJ Digital Talk. I'm your host, Hutch Bailey Jr. in the WHBJ, soon-to-be Cold War Radio studio, once again, with my co-host Norway from the serious north. We're going to drop off where we... Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one, because in the break here, we played the promo for RD Elephant, and I just want to give a big shout-out to James Chief. He is the mind behind this fantastic social media blogging, podcasting heaven. I mean, there aren't a lot of people on RD Elephant yet, but I've been surfing around, and I think that this is going to be a great thing in the future when more people join. And it is you can join for a small fee. I'm not sure what it is right now, but it means that you keep most of the trolls away as well. So people, you should check out rdelephant.com.
Right.
rdelephant.com.
And maybe we'll get the president to go there instead of Parler. I was
Exactly.
I was so hopeful when I saw that article. I was so hopeful. I was hoping, man, I hope he went to RD Elephant, or they're thinking about that. But I mean, it wasn't. So, but that's not to say that it won't, because he's not. He hasn't committed to anything yet. I want to go back to Palestinian Justin Amash from Michigan. He had a town hall, and now the clips are starting to come out. I want you to listen to this woman. I mean, this was amazing. And she had a couple stutters because she was looking at her phone. She didn't want to get anything wrong. But I want you to listen to this. Man, does she do the right thing?
Hi. I'm going to admit that I assumed that this was going to be more Republicans than Democrats when I came here. So I'm a little more nervous than I would have been otherwise. But I would like to say that I think a lot of the people here that are cheering you and applauding your courage, most likely a lot of them didn't vote for you. I, on the other hand, have voted for you in every election since 2010. And in fact, I worked on your first campaign in 2010. I knocked on hundreds of doors for you. I made hundreds of cold calls for you, inviting people to your events to meet you. I made tons of personal phone calls to friends to vote you in when you were running against a bunch of other people, right? That was like your hardest election versus being an incumbent, in the last time you ran. So I was there for you from the very beginning. I'm not sure how many people applauding his courage were, but I would like to say since that time, I've changed my position on you. And you have spent the last 2 years failing to do your job, which is to directly represent the popular will of your constituents. That is your job.
That's not my job. No, sorry.
I double-checked online before I wrote that in my notes. So it is your job. It's on house.gov. You can read it yourself.
My job is to uphold the Constitution.
No, that's not what house.gov says.
That is my job.
That's not what... Those are not mutually exclusive. Do you realize that those are not mutually exclusive?
They can be. Okay. That's why our system is designed the way it
Not
is.
in the way that you've behaved. At first, so you called for the nearly unprecedented step of impeachment. And at first you gave no reason. I read every single one of your tweets. And then when you were pressed, you finally gave a reason, and you came up with things like discussions of firings that never happened, rumors of recusal reversals that never happened, nobody reversed their recusal, and then made baseless claims about obstruction of justice, which I know you discussed it before, but you have to have corrupt intent. So you have to prove that Trump knew that he was guilty of a crime and knowingly tried to obstruct justice based on that. Okay? You don't have that. You don't have proof of corrupt intent. You don't.
That's not what the
And you
Mueller report
also
says.
further know that impeachment would tear this country apart if it went through and he was removed from office. It would cause a political upheaval in this country people in this generation have never seen before, possible civil war. You rest safe in the knowledge that that will not happen, that he won't be removed from office. So you get to make the political grandstanding that raises your national profile. You are now a national household name. That's called political capital. And you are hoping to launch your star bigger and brighter than District 3. You just talked about how you did better in District 3 than Trump? Do you want to talk about how the last election you got the least amount of support that you ever have because you haven't supported the MAGA agenda? Now, that's your right to do so, but it's your right to support whatever you want, but you also know that you have no future in this district because of that as a Republican. So you want to go bigger and brighter. And I have my final thing, my question is, why did you talk nothing about the FISA abuses? If you care about the Constitution so much, why didn't you say anything about the year-long violation of the Fourth Amendment rights of Trump and his entire transition team? Every phone call, every email, every personal conversation for a year was spied upon and recorded. And they had no knowledge. And you are laughing. You are laughing about a year-long spying on an entire team of people. Fourth Amendment's violated. And you didn't speak about it once. You didn't speak about the FISA abuses, which is currently under investigation. And you called A.G. Barr a liar without any proof. There was plenty.
All right, Michigan, there's your next representative in Congress right there. My goodness, she let him have it.
I see the chat room is lighting up, and Rocky commented, as Regina would say, she has balls.
She didn't let up, man, and she made some really good points. I mean, especially with the FISA warrants.
Absolutely. I mean, and it beggars belief. No, my role is to work to protect the Constitution. You know, as a representative in the House of Representatives, you're supposed to work for the people that elected you. That's the whole idea of the House. The Senate is supposed to work for the states that has sent the senators to the Senate. And this guy has been in power for 2 years, and he is deeply embedded in the cronyism in Washington. And, you know, here you have a classic example of a crony capitalist, which is as bad as any Marxist, against the people.
Sure. I mean, he's a Chinese agent. He's a Chinese agent. He's working for China.
Yeah, Amash is a co-owner of Dynamic Source International, a Chinese company that supplies Michigan Industrial Tools, Inc., which is his father's Wyoming-based business. And this company, Dynamic Source International, is based in Yuhang District in Hangzhou, Zhejiang, China.
Yeah, what a phony this guy is. I have another black American that was at the same rally.
President Trump has defined Democrats and Republicans pretty good. And from what I'm seeing for the black community and minorities is that Trump is good for America. And I wonder why the Republicans and Democrats are fighting him so much when he's doing such a good job. And you're demonizing him. You're demonizing them on something that you know is not true. It's just bewildering to me that you can treat the President of the United States in this way, especially when he's doing such a good job for the minorities and black people.
So, I mean, how can you come back against that? I mean, it's this whole thing is getting ready to cave in. I can't believe Justin Amash is such a, oh my goodness. There's one in every bunch, I guess. We had several before him. They just were more, the names were more recognized, so we never heard of Amash. I had heard some things early on, but I just, he doesn't have a future.
No, but you know, I heard there is Coke money here. I've heard that Bill Kristol is ready to prop him up. I heard that, like we talked about in this brilliant interview with Andrew Langer, the libertarian, they have gone completely off the rail. You know, I have a great respect for the libertarian idea, but the libertarians of today
Justin Amash.
They're just as bad as the Democrats. I mean, I see no difference between them. They can be as hoi polloi about the economic politics as they want, but when they go out and act, they act in the interest of the subversive, anti-American Democrats that are trying to destroy the republic, which makes them no better. I don't think that Amash will disappear, but I think he will try to change lanes into the libertarian lane. But I hope that people have woken up to this crony capitalist and vote him out, because
Absolutely.
He has no place in government.
No, and they're waiting for him. He's going to have a show on MSNBC or something like that. He was. That's all he's doing is raising his own star. I mean, there's no question. Now, we talked earlier about the deep state a little bit, and I want you to see if you remember back probably a year, maybe even a year and a half ago, when I started really coming down on Jefferson Beauregard sessions. And I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people, and I remember a lot of them saying that don't worry, he's got this lined up. He's got a prosecutor out in Salt Lake City named Huber. Yeah,
trust the plan.
Clinton Foundation investigators say Huber lost their evidence, had to send it 3 times. Huber never even looked at it. Now, is anybody surprised? I mean, I'm not going to say I'm always right, but it was clear to me this was a sham, and it always has been. I don't think it is anymore. I think now we've passed that level of being able to just brush all this under the rug. What do you think, Marlene from Eugene?
Oh, hello. Oh, gosh, that was an awesome interview. And, yeah, I do remember the whole thing with the Bundys. And I don't think I followed it that closely, but I remember it was going on. It was all over our local paper.
Yeah, it was 2. This was like the second chapter after the Bundy Ranch. These people, they're connected somehow. I can't remember how.
I guess they are, yeah.
One of them was killed, too.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes, they did. But anyway,
Dwight and Stephen Hammond were the original ones, I think, and then the Bundy brothers came in and took over as simply as a protest about the sentencing of the Hammonds.
Yes. Yep. I guess switching gears a little more local, closer to home, this was in yesterday's paper. Our county homeless numbers are going up again. They've gone up 32% since last year.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
No kidding. And I'm starting to see, I'm noticing, I don't know whether it's because I've been paying more attention, but I notice them. They're all over the place. I mean, when I go to work in the morning, I see them. When I'm running around town on the weekend, they're all over the place. It's just nuts.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is to it. I mean, it's.
I don't either. And you know what's weird was I was talking to a coworker of mine. I mentioned she was telling me that she used to live in Arizona before she moved up here, and she said they're homeless down there, and they can't wait to get to Oregon because Oregon takes care of their homeless population. And it's like, what? No, we don't need that. We got enough people here.
No, the answer is vet your candidate. Make sure that good conservatives are elected. Get those damn socialists out and support Trump, and it will take care of itself. I mean, a solid boost of the economy will trickle down to these people if you remove the breaks, the stops in between that we know as Democrats, which in reality are Marxists. I mean, it is in their interest to keep people downtrodden and desperate, because that means more votes for these criminals.
And dependent.
Right.
I mean, this is you see these reports
They are very dependent.
where they say that, there's more jobs than there are people to fill them. No, there's not. Start turning that welfare off, 5-6% at a time. And you'll find people flocking to those jobs. You have to.
We don't, our economy out here is not all that terrific. I mean, I don't see, jobs. I don't see a whole, more jobs than there are people. Not in Oregon. Maybe
Right.
in the not out here. And I'm sure
Well,
this is the same way.
This is going to take a while. I mean, if you look when Reagan
It
took
will.
over, it took 4 years for anything to even start moving forward, and
That's
especially at the fundamental level that the president's doing. The president is enabling investment into machinery and infrastructure. I'm not talking about streets infrastructure. I'm talking about business infrastructure. If you have
I get it.
you want to manufacture, you got to put the equipment in there. They can write it
I
off in the
understand.
first year. So that's going to be a long-term thing that hopefully lasts decades. It should. I mean, if we keep it up. But, the thing is, you say elect conservatives. One of the problems that we have is these Democrats are geniuses. They are geniuses. They get people together in communities. And for instance, I lived in the country for 20 years, right? There is a huge difference between people that live in the country where there's not much government and people that live in these cities. These people, one of the things that I do and have for 40 years is I listen to a police radio. I've been doing it for forever. And some of the calls that you hear in the city, I heard a call for law enforcement calling the police for a wounded rabbit. And I'm thinking,
I saw you posted that.
I'm thinking, how do you have a mindset where you call the police for a wounded rabbit? And I started thinking, and it's, if you're dependent on the government for everything, what else are you going to do? You certainly don't have a gun, because the first thing I thought, I have several small caliber rifles and pistols, and I would have went out, ting, for 12 cents, I'd have thrown them over the fence. But that's what you do, because that's what the cop's going to do. Except it's going to be a 9mm.
Right.
And it's going to make a mess. But I just couldn't believe. And when you have that, all these politicians have to do is say they're going to take all these benefits away, and they all get terrified, especially the seniors. And these politicians lie to them. And
but I believe that there is money also in Oregon, but the problem is when you have a really bloated bureaucracy that is milking whatever comes into the state. Ordinary people don't see it, and you can bet your beeswax when the real election run is starting, they're going to say, well, they say that Trump has made such a great economy in America, but look at you people, you are poor, you're downtrodden. It is an example of his failure. You need to vote Democrat to right this horrible.
You got to see Biden? Yes, I did.
You can look at me.
Obama, 2012, he's going to win, baby. He's the man. Biden was down here, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Go, Obama!
What do you like most about the Obama administration?
And they're stupid, too, man. That's the part.
No kidding. They are stupid. Hello?
They can tell you every stat that there is in the NFL or Major League Baseball, but I don't know. Thanks for calling, Marlene. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, bye-bye.
And thanks for the promo, too. Wow. People just never underestimate the strength of stupid people in large numbers. It's just
that's what's keeping CNN barely bobbing in the surface, and that's what's keeping the Democratic Party alive.
But CNN's going to go soon. They're going to go soon. I mean, we were talking earlier. They're making paychecks available 90 days after the fact. And
to their freelancers,
which is a lot, and they're furious. But this is how you see that it's working. They're going out of business.
I think that may well be an indication that they're tanking.
Yeah, Yeah, they have to be.
What else? What else would the rationale be behind such a move? I mean, it's deeply angering the hardworking freelancers, feeding them material,
Right.
And they get paid 3 months after they've done the job. It's ridiculous.
It is
ridiculous. I think they're actually tanking. When you look at their numbers, it's abysmal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they probably the only coverage they got, apart from forcing their sickness on airports, is what we're giving them. I mean, we're probably their best customers.
No doubt about it. It plays at the VA too, by the way. It plays at the VA hospital too.
Haven't they been through enough when you are in a VA hospital and then you have to be force-fed with the communist news network?
Now, I don't know if that's just a local thing here in Pittsburgh, to be honest, just for fairness. But I want to play another clip. This one's a couple minutes long, a few minutes long, but it says so much and goes so far. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show when I said I think the dams are about to break. I think we're about ready, and I pray to God that this is true. We're about ready to see some results. Let's listen to Rudy Giuliani on with Sean Hannity. Don't worry about what Sean Hannity says, but listen to Giuliani.
Mueller makes this big splash yesterday. Everybody then ignores he had to clarify, and everything that he had said in that 9.5-minute period was not true. In terms of, well, I couldn't look at it because of Justice Department policy. He said to numerous people on numerous occasions that was not a consideration.
He actually said it in the report, if you read it carefully. First 2 pages of the report, he said, I cannot conclude that he committed obstruction of justice. End of story. That's when a prosecutor stops, an ethical one. This whole thing about it, but I can't exonerate him, is completely made up by Weissman and him and these completely perverted prosecutors who somehow want Donald Trump to prove his innocence. Well, he actually can in many cases. But you're not required to prove your innocence because you can't prove a negative. So they have completely reversed American law, and the media lets them get away with it. And you want me to answer why they didn't cover the retraction, which basically says just what I said? Mm-hmm. Because they're dishonest. Because they're corrupt, and the president's absolutely right. And the people who do that are the enemy of the people. Because what they're doing is they're perpetuating a complete lie.
They've done it for 2 years, Mr.
It's the reason they won't cover Ukraine. If Donald Trump Jr. got $1.5 billion from the Chinese, you don't think we'd be going crazy?
Oh, and Donald Trump, his father, in this case, Joe Biden, the father.
Got $1.5 billion from China for a startup private equity fund, while the old man was giving us away to China.
He was flying in Air Force
He flew the kid there.
Flew
the kid there on Air Force.
By the way, he had no background in that field either.
He'd just been tossed out of the military for being a drug addict. And they give him $1.5 billion in China because of his expertise? Or did they give it to him because Joe had caved into them on the islands, on tariffs, sold us out so the kid could get $1.5 billion? We're not covering that? And you tell me these people are honest?
Let me ask you.
They're covering, trying to figure out if Donald Trump got a parking ticket 20 years ago, and they don't cover 1.5. How about the $5 million from one of the most crooked people in the Ukraine? While Joe is doling out the money to the Ukraine. And then Joe bribes the president of the Ukraine.
He says you have 6 hours, fire the prosecutor that's investigating his son, or I'm leaving with America's money.
The money that would have the country go under. Remember, it wasn't just $1.2 billion, as if that's not a lot of money. They were going to default if they didn't get $1.2 billion. They were desperate. Poroshenko didn't want to fire the guy. He was the godfather of the guy's kid. He did it because he was extorted. That's the crime, Joe, extorted. And by the way, when he took the money for Ukraine, we call that, under all laws, bribery. Bribery, not some ridiculous obstruction where there's no underlying crime and no active obstruction. Here, we got the money, we got the pressure, we got the result, we got the official action. Offering money or withholding money for an official action is the classical common law crime of bribery.
You said the
and
words.
The dishonest press will not cover it. And that's why when the president says they're dishonest, when he says they're corrupt, and even when he says they're the enemy of the people, those are words. They're proving it.
They have lied repeatedly, knowingly, purposefully for 2 years. Let me ask you. You said this about Mueller. I dare Robert Mueller to testify. But I do. But I do too. Why did he hire that team? When did he know there was no collusion? Why did he ignore the dirty Russian dossier? I have a lot of questions for him.
Well, I watched him yesterday for 9 minutes. I saw a man read. He didn't give a statement. He read a statement, haltingly, a little stumbling.
A lot of stumbling.
Ran out without answering questions. Press just lived with that. I can't remember they ever let me go without answering questions. And I've never been afraid to answer questions because I'm not deceiving them. And I'm not afraid of them because I'm not deceiving them. So I met with that guy once. Once.
That's it.
Yeah, every time I had a problem, somebody else we had to meet with. Once when we had a crisis, and we took him to task in the Attorney General's office, or Deputy Attorney General's office, and I blasted them. He didn't show up. I saw him a year and a half ago, one and only time. I called him the Wizard of Oz. We would say, you're doing this, you're doing that, it's wrong. I'd say, we'll take it up with Bob. I used to sometimes say, well, maybe we shouldn't wake him.
Mr. Mayor, you outlined Hillary Clinton. We know they rigged her investigation. She's guilty. Espionage Act and an intent, and the underlying crime was Espionage Act. She was eliminating the evidence by deletions and bleach pit and hammers.
Oh, man, we could start doing new things about her. I mean, we could have all kinds of new things about her. I just found out from my work in Ukraine, the Clinton Foundation got untold hundreds of millions from Ukrainian crooked oligarchs.
Okay, when are we going to get to the dirty
You think
dossier?
Ukrainian oligarchs give away hundreds of millions and not get something in return? They're pretty tough guys.
Do you believe these people that abused their power, that used the dirty dossier, that rigged her investigation, that tried to steal an election and then undermine a duly elected president, are you confident they will be held accountable?
Yeah, I'm absolutely confident. I'm absolutely confident. Ukraine is just one piece of it. I mean, it's much bigger than that. This whole thing with the Steele dossier is dynamite, absolute dynamite. I don't see how Comey walks away from it.
I don't either.
I mean, I would, I'd love to prosecute the case. I'd love to cross-examine one of these guys. Oh, man. It'd be a dream.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for being with us. Good job, by the way. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, when we come back, the president
I'll tell you, I don't usually let clips that long go, but I especially don't like. I don't really care for. I mean, Sean Hannity's the last one, though. I got to give him credit on that. But man, Rudy Giuliani looked good in that interview. I don't know if you've seen him in the past couple of years. He didn't look so good a few times, but boy, he looked good right there. And I would love to see him prosecute him. I would. He took down all 5 families of La Cosa Nostra. You know?
Yeah, and you know you can really hear his inspiration when he says at the end, "Oh, I would love to cross-examine this guy."
And that was the main reason I played the clip, because of the details. I mean,
that is brilliant.
They're going down, man. The only way that you can survive any of that is to have a corrupt DOJ, and now the whole country knows that. And
yeah.
Barr is
I mean, Bill Barr, Attorney General Bill Barr, said today that John Huber, he never even started his investigation, and I just pray to God that Bill Barr is the real deal here. I know he has some procedures he needs to go through, but my gut feeling tells me that he is not going to hold back.
No, I don't think he is either. Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly jihad report: 40 jihad attacks, 195 killed, 200 injured, 2 suicide blasts occurring in 16 countries. The religion of peace atrocity of the week: bombs set off outside of a bakery in France. Some of the latest misunderstandings of Islam: on the 31st in the Philippines, a Dutch bird watcher held hostage by Abu Sayyaf is killed as he tries to escape. On the 30th, Afghanistan, a Fedayeen suicide blast near a university leaves 6 dead. On the 27th in Thailand, a 14-year-old boy is among 2 killed by Muslim bombers at a marketplace. On the 27th in Nigeria, a group fighting for Sharia slaughters 7 innocents at a displaced persons camp. On the 26th, also in Nigeria, local Muslims murder 7 innocents on their way home from church. On the 26th in Burkina Faso, gunmen fire into a church during the service, killing 4 worshipers. The Ramadan Bombathon 2019 in day 26, terror in the name of Islam, 140 attacks, 686 kills. All others religions combined, 0 attacks, 0 kills. By right-wing or anti-Muslim extremists, 1 attack with 1 killed. On the 14th of May in Sri Lanka, man killed by anti-Muslim mob. The religion of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Okay, over the weekend, when they snuck Mueller into the press room, they did that when the Attorney General was in Alaska, and that was just a coincidence, I'm sure. But Attorney General William Barr did an interview with CBS, and to your point before the Jihad report, Norway, AG Barr sends warning to deep state in blunt CBS interview. Government interference in elections is as bad as foreign interference. And the interview was geared to trip them up, and it didn't work. I actually have the entire transcript of the interview, and Jan Crawford says it's just as dangerous. So when we talk about foreign interference versus, say, a government abuse of power, which is more troubling? And the Attorney General said, well, they're both. They're both troubling. She says, equally? In my mind, they are, sure. I mean, republics have fallen because of Praetorian Guard mentality, where government officials get very arrogant. They identify the national interest with their own political preferences, and they feel that anyone who has a different opinion, is somehow an enemy of the state. And there is that tendency that they know better, and that they're there to protect as guardians of the people. That can easily translate into essentially supervening the will of the majority and getting your own way as a government official. And she comes back, and you're concerned that may have happened in 2016? And the Attorney General says, well, I just think that it has to be carefully looked at, because the use of foreign intelligence capabilities and counterintelligence capabilities against an American political campaign, to me, is unprecedented, and it's a serious red line that's been crossed. He is serious. I'm going to play a short clip of the interview, but it was selected by CBS, so it's not as juicy as the transcript.
In an exclusive interview, Attorney General William Barr says Special Counsel Robert Mueller could have said whether he believes President Trump committed a crime. Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford traveled with Barr to Alaska, where he's listening to the unique concerns of Alaskan natives.
Their interview lasted nearly an hour, and Jan was able to press the Attorney General on issues ranging from obstruction of the investigation to his review of how that investigation began back in 2016. Jan Crawford is with us from Anchorage. Jan, what did the Attorney General have to say?
Well, I mean, right out of the box, he said he was surprised when the special counsel told him that he was not going to be making a decision on whether or not the president committed the crime of obstruction of justice. He said he didn't really press him on that, but then he and his lawyers at the Department of Justice analyzed the evidence Mueller had gathered and made the decision himself. He said that he couldn't exonerate the president. You looked at that evidence, and you did. I mean, what's the fundamental difference between your view and his?
Well,
I think Bob said that he was not going to engage in the analysis. He was not going to make a determination one way or the other. We analyzed the law and the facts, and a group of us spent a lot of time doing that and determined that both as a matter of law, many of the instances would not amount to obstruction.
As a matter of law.
As a matter of law. In other words, we didn't agree with the legal analysis. A lot of the legal analysis in the report, it did not reflect the views of the department. It was the views of a particular lawyer or lawyers. So we applied what we thought was the right law.
That decision, offered up in a 4-page summary, opened the Attorney General to criticism.
Response was that you were too soft on the president, that actually the special counsel is a little on obstruction.
I was just trying to state the bottom line, and the bottom line was that Bob Mueller identified some episodes. He did not reach a conclusion. He provided both sides of the issue, and his conclusion was he wasn't exonerating the president, but he wasn't finding a crime either.
I do not believe it is appropriate for me to speak further about the investigation.
While Barr testified before Congress about the special counsel's report, Mueller wants the report to speak for itself and signaled he does not want to testify.
Do you think he should?
It's up to Bob, but I think the line he's drawing, which is that he's going to stick to what he said in the report, is the proper line for any department official.
So that's really all you need to know, Norway, about CBS. They have this great interview with these important points, and that's what they talk about. They come out with a clip. And what it did was set up Barr versus Mueller. You know, this guy thinks this and this guy thinks that, and we're all for Mueller on the left. It's just the networks are horrible.
Yeah, but it is an interview technique to ask dumb questions, but there is also a limit to how dumb a question you can ask. And when AG Barr says that, I just think it has to be carefully looked at because the use of foreign intelligence capabilities against an American political campaign to me is unprecedented. And it's a serious red line that's been crossed. And Jan Crawford, she comes back and says, did that happen? where the hell has she been the past 3 years? I mean, hello.
I know. So we're going to follow that very closely. But the esteemed Pope Francis has said some things about your region, Norway, that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean the last number I saw said that the number of Catholic scholars who have signed the heresy, the papal heresy letter, is now up to 81. I mean, these are 81 of the greatest minds in the Catholic Church that are accusing Pope Francis of heresy, and they are absolutely right in their accusations. And Pope Francis, he recently came out a couple of days ago saying that Sweden is a model of good immigration policy and is, quote, full of Latin Americans, unquote. But I'll tell you this: Sweden is way fuller of Muslims than Latin Americans. Yes, there is a good contingency of Latin Americans in Sweden. Most of them are actually Marxists. They are really vocal. They are really up in people's faces. So Sweden has become a hellhole of immigration. I mean, churches have stopped chiming their bells on Sunday because it can offend the Muslim populations. They are taking down crosses from the churches not yet burned by the Muslims, not to offend the new master race of Sweden. And this is what this fake pope is calling a good immigration policy. I mean, that guy is such a fraud. It is disgusting. And I hope and pray that the Catholic Church will revolt against this fake pope and oust him.
And they should. I mean, there's so many different things he won't meet with government leaders because of their immigration policy. I mean, I don't know where this guy came from, but he's got to go. You're right. Let's welcome Artie to the program from California. Hello, sir.
Hutch, Norway, and everybody. How are you?
Doing good.
Hey, Artie.
I think this is getting pretty interesting now with Attorney General Barr's efforts to flip some rocks over, and I'm hoping his prosecutor in New York is really going to step up to the plate and assist the Attorney General. And I can tell you, I have no faith in the FBI, except for, we all know the ones that are being quieted or being suppressed. But I couldn't think of another movie that when the Attorney General was or Mueller was making his announcement on his findings, my thoughts went right away to the movie played by Jack Nicholson, the movie The Departed.
Yeah, that was definitely him. That was all about the FBI, and I think it was either Comey or Mueller who were deep into it, maybe both of them.
Yes, sir. And another movie was even Patriots Day about the Boston Marathon bombing. The agent in charge that showed up on the scene, he wanted anything about Muslims suppressed.
Yeah.
With the Sonara brothers. And he fought to the bitter end to keep that out of the news. You could tell he was under heavy pressure to keep anything Muslim related out of their initial findings or reports. And those two movies really came to mind the other day when I heard Mueller reporting. And, we all know the story on Whitey Bulger. He, there was one of Mueller's agents was tipping off Whitey Bulger as to what their moves were going to be coming after him. And
absolutely. Have you read the book, Artie, called Secret Empires, How the American Political Class Hides Corruption and Enriches Family and Friends? It's by Peter Schweitzer. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that, but I sure will look for it in Norway.
It is, actually, the past shows we have done here on CWR Radio, there is a red line going through these shows, and it is all described in Peter Schweitzer's Secret Empires and also Diana West's The Red Thread. So if you really want to get into the bread and butter of these corruption cases and how red these guys are. I mean, these are communists from A to Z. And you're mentioning Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger is also he is connected to the Thornton Group, which was connected to the Rosemont Seneca group, which is the firm that Biden's son started and got $1.5 billion out of. So, I mean, it is, you got to read these books. I mean, it is jaw-dropping, absolutely fantastic how the American political class, how deep the corruption is running. It is time, it is stopped, and I hope and pray that Bill Barr is going to do that job with the help of other good patriotic Americans. And you have a background as a U.S. Secret Service agent or a U.S. Secret Service man, Artie. What is your thoughts about Bill Barr and the job he is doing now?
Well, I didn't know anything about him, but so far what I see, I very much like, and I believe he's going to follow the Constitution and, adhere strictly to it. He's not Mr. Trump's lawyer, as they all want to call him. I believe he is strictly like Alan Dershowitz. He believes in the Constitution and never straying from that.
I think it's got to terrify him. It really does. And I think that's all we really want. We don't want someone that's Republican that's like the Democrats. We don't want that. We don't want a Republican Eric Holder. We just want the truth. That's all we want, the truth. Just follow the law. Don't worry about parties. Just lock them all up. Hey, thanks for calling, Artie. Got to go.
Hey, thanks, Hutch, and everybody. Norway, have a great weekend.
Yep, you too.
You too, Artie.
All right, let's move right into winners and losers because it's that time of night, rather. Norway, you go first. Why don't you want to go winner or loser first?
I honestly don't know. I'll take the winners first.
All right, you want me to play the clip?
Yeah, go ahead.
Most of all, to the nearly 1,000 cadets who I have agreed to shake every single hand. They gave me a choice. They said, sir, you don't have to shake any hands. Some people do that. Those are the smart ones. They're out of here. You can shake one hand to the one person, top of the class. You can shake 10, 50, or 100. And you could also stay for 1,000. And I'm staying for 1,000, okay? And I know we're all going to make it. There's no doubt about it, right? There's no doubt about it. To the nearly 1,000 cadets who will soon become second lieutenants in the U.S. Air Force, you could have chosen any school, any career you wanted, but you chose a harder path and a higher calling to protect and defend the United States of America. I know what you've been through, and it's tougher, but you know what? In the end, it's better. You're going to see. You'll see.
All right, Norway's winner, the U.S. Air Force Academy. No, go ahead.
No, it's, of course, President Donald J. Trump. I mean, there is a leader. I mean, that is a leader. When you stay behind and you shake the hands of all these second Louis that just have finished school, it is... and what a memorable day for each and every one of these guys. And there, a lot of them sitting on the fence, politically. I think this may have swayed their ideas about the president. And this is leading from the front. So that has to be my winner this week. I would also say that maybe Fire Eye Summit in October think they are winners. They have just hired Hillary Clinton to speak about cyber defense, to speak at the cyber defense on network security. We are all pleased to announce that former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton will be a featured keynote at our Fire Eyes Summit in October. Secretary Clinton will engage in an intimate Q&A keynote discussion with Kevin Mandia.
At the Mayberry Volunteer Fire Department. Seating is limited, so we had to bring her in,
I'm sorry, guys, but you belong in the losers category. And if my hunch is right, Comey, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, Strzok, Page, or Schiff, Clinton, and Obama are all about to fail the bar exam.
Nice. That's true, and I can't wait. And I don't care how high it goes, it doesn't matter. My winner for this week, I'm going to shock you, Senator Pat Toomey. Senator Pat Toomey, you heard that right. He is actually, sanctuary policies pose a threat to public safety. Senator Pat Toomey, Republican, Pennsylvania, thinks that his new laws would block them from receiving some federal funds to try to change their minds. And you can get into that a little deeper if you like, but that's the best thing that guy ever did. And he's been working at it, as I looked into it, for a couple years. So let's wish him luck on that front. That is a good thing. I say starve Pittsburgh out, starve Philadelphia out, all of them. Starve them out, man. They're committing crimes, and they're ruining their cities worse than they were when they got them. My loser, Palestinian Justin Amash. I don't think any further description is needed on that. Norway, with that, final comments, and how can people get in touch with you?
Final comments must be a big thank you to John, Marlene, to you, Hutch, Rocky. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. I love you guys, and the package I got last week is absolutely magnificent. I got 2 pocket knives in that, a Gerber and a Leatherman, really high quality. And Hutch, in Norway, our weapon law is now so strict that you cannot own a pocket knife that is 10 centimeters or has a lockable blade. So these small pocket knives are a godsend, and I absolutely love everything you've sent. Just fantastic. So thank you, guys. And please pray for our fantastic host, Hutch Bailey Jr. He was feeling under the weather today, but he has battled on. So I hope that you give him a prayer so he can get back on the up and up for Monday's show. God bless you, Hutch.
Thank you, Norway, and thank you, everyone. I'll be fine. I'll power through it. I'm part Viking. Don't forget that.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on all social media outlets. I want to thank everybody listening to WHBJ exclusively. Cold War Radio will be around. WHBJ will be back, probably. But anyway, thanks for letting us into your life for a couple hours. Thanks to Mona Salama and Stacy Rush and Sal at CWR, my newest co-host. Jacob Seals, ladies and gentlemen, the American Dreamer. God bless.